Welcome to this video for applicants whose expression of interest for adding value to Agri-Food capital grants have been approved. We're going to talk you through some of the main points which will help you to put together a good quality full application. At the end of this video, you should have a good understanding of the timescales to put together an application, the scope of the information you need to provide to us, some practical pointers and guidance. Some important points to remember: the full application stage remains competitive. You've done well and you've cleared the first hurdle by having your expression of interest endorsed, but just because that was successful doesn't mean that your full application will be approved. Please do look carefully at the letter that we've sent you endorsing your expression of interest and cover any points that are raised in there. If there are any apparent weaknesses in your application or areas that we think that you need to address, we will have highlighted them in there. Please do read the handbook and the guidance on gov.uk and please download that afresh because there have been just one or two minor updates. And really importantly, don't start work, place any orders or incur costs until we've given you a decision, as that would make some or perhaps all of your project ineligible if you were to do so. Just a few general points. Please do allow yourself enough time to put the application together. It does take a bit of time to do that and get all the supporting information together. Each question in the forms is asked for a particular reason. So I'd suggest that you don't answer and say, please see question above, because different questions are asked for different reasons. If you think that a question is not applicable, please explain why you think that's the case. And very importantly, you know what you'd like to do and why you'd like to do it, but we only know what you tell us in the application form, so please do explain your proposal and your project to us in the forms. So the timescales, as I say, you've cleared the first hurdle, you've had your expression of interest endorsed. We find that typically it takes 2 to 3 months for you to put the full application together. And once you've submitted a valid full application, we aim to turn that around and give you a decision within 12 weeks, 60 working days. If we approve your project and issue a grant funding agreement, then once you've signed that, that's the point at which you can start work on the project. And the other key date is that all projects which we approve, they need to be completed and claims submitted by the end of December 2020. There's some key documents that you need to read. So I suggest you read through again the Adding Value to Agri-Food handbook on gov.uk. And as I've mentioned, a letter of invitation inviting you to put a full application in. Please read the guidance that we've sent you, how to fill in the application form. There are 2 forms that you need to complete. One is a Word document that tells us the story of your project and the rationale behind it. And alongside that, there's an application appendix. That's an Excel spreadsheet, and that provides us with facts and figures, information about yourself as an applicant and about your project. You need to complete both of those in the format they're provided to you in. And finally, you need to supply supporting information, and Jonathan will talk to you through the supporting information that you need to provide. So, what do we look for when we're assessing a full application? A couple of main things we do. First of all, we check eligibility. So we check the eligibility of yourself as the applicant. We check the eligibility of the things that you want to do and apply for grant on. And we check that the costs you're applying for grant on are eligible, including the quotes that you've provided. The other area that we look at, important area, is scoring. So we score different areas: strategic fit, value for money, the need and demand for the project, financial viability, and delivering sustainability. And we'll be covering those areas in a bit more detail during this video. So first of all, thinking about eligible costs, The eligible costs under this grant scheme are the cost of buying equipment and machinery to do the processing, and also the cost of constructing or improving buildings that you need associated with all stages of the processing. You'll also note on page 22 of the handbook there are some other costs which are eligible if they are part of an eligible project, including certain professional fees, bespoke computer software, patents, licenses, those sorts of things if they're appropriate. So you'll see them on page 22. Also, please note the list of ineligible items in the handbook on pages 23 and 24. Just one or two to highlight. One is the cost of refurbishment. We can't cover the cost of refurbishing equipment or machinery. And similarly, we can't cover the running costs of running your business, things like salaries and consumables. But please do check out the list of ineligible items in the handbook. We look at the priorities for funding and how well your project contributes to them. The priorities for funding are listed on page 17 of the handbook. Very important really that your project will benefit the supply chain. So it provides direct benefits either to yourself if you're growing the produce you're going to process, or will benefit other growers if you're processing other growers' produce. But that's a key priority for this grant scheme. Similarly, strategic fit on page 18 in the handbook includes how well the project will benefit the environment, will it mitigate climate change, and that it doesn't disadvantage anybody on account of their ethnicity, disability, age or gender. Very importantly, when you're telling us about how well your project fits with the priorities, please don't just tell us that it does fit with them, but explain how, and be realistic as well. We assess the value for money for your project in the same way that you look at value for money when you're deciding whether to invest in your business. So too, we need to be satisfied that your project is value for the funding that is available for this grant scheme. Couple of key areas there. We look at the direct outputs that your project would deliver. So these are the things that would directly result from the things that we grant fund you to do. They include increased turnover, the new products that you will produce, new markets, what are those markets, new customers, and jobs that are directly created. So when you tell us about these, please do explain the assumptions that you've based the direct outputs on, that your project will create. The other area is wider outcomes. So these are the benefits that will result from your project, but not directly generated by your business. So it may be that there's employment in other parts of the rural economy, benefits to other businesses. So please do tell us about those. And again, be realistic. We assess the need for the project. So first of all, thinking about your business, please do explain to us why you need this project, what options you've considered, and why you've come to the conclusion that this project is the best option for your business. And very importantly as well, why do you need a grant for the project to go ahead? Why couldn't it just go ahead anyway? Would it not go ahead at all? Or would it be a less efficient project or on a longer time scale? Your customers, so please explain to us the market for the product that you're going to process, what your target market and customers are, where are they, who are they, and give us some quantification of the demand for the produce. And linked in with that, your competitors, who are your competitors, and what impact will your project have on them. So in the same way that you wouldn't be happy if we funded another project which had a negative impact on your business and took some of your customers. So similarly, explain to us how your project could go ahead, where the gap in the market is for your project, without adversely impacting other existing businesses. Financial viability is another important area. So in this area, we check that your proposed project wouldn't put your underlying business at serious financial risk. So we check that your existing business, or a new business if that's what you're setting up, has the financial capability and strength to deliver the project if we approve the grant. And we also look to see whether the assumptions that you've used in your cash flow forecasts look realistic. A couple of main things that we need to see there. One is the evidence of match funding, so that we have reassurance that if we were to approve grant, you would be able to go ahead with the project. The other main area is business accounts, including the accounts of any linked businesses. And they need to be the full accounts, including all the pages and the notes pages. Delivery and sustainability. So we look at delivery from the point at which we approve funding through until you've completed the project and submitted the final claim. So tell us about the project management team, what their skills and experience is, and whether they are people within your existing business or whether you'll be buying in external expertise. Another key area there is the risks. So identify the main risks to the project, which I think of in terms of what might go wrong, how likely is it to go wrong, does it matter if it goes wrong, and what can you do to reduce the likelihood and impact of those things happening. Finally, from myself, projects that we won't support. If your project would just displace existing activity in a rural area, we wouldn't support it. Similarly, if it's just relocating a business, but without any increase in economic activity. This grant aims to improve the productivity of your business, so we wouldn't fund a project if there's no demonstrable plan to improve the productivity as a result of the project. We wouldn't support a project that put your underlying business at financial risk of failure, nor where the project would go ahead as proposed with or without grant funding.
Supporting information. As David explained, there are 2 forms to actually fill in, and in addition we look to actually ask you to supply supporting information to justify various aspects of what you've said in your actual application. First thing we look at is actually permissions and licences. Planning permission is key to most projects under adding value, where you're either converting a building to an alternative use or actually constructing a new building. You must obtain full planning permission before you submit your application. Without full planning permission in place, we cannot accept your application. Other aspects we look at with regards to consent are landlord's consent. Specifically where you're a tenant, we look to ensure that you have at least 5 years remaining on your tenancy so that you can undertake the project and have the required minimum period to carry out the project. Other consents and licences we also look for are aspects with regards to Food Standards Agency and local environmental health officers. We also ask for financial information with regards to your business. We ask you to provide 3 years trading accounts. We also ask you to provide confirmation of match funding. We need to understand how the project is being funded and that you have sufficient funds available to you to undertake the project. If you're not VAT registered, in these situations you need to provide us with evidence from your accountant to demonstrate that you are not VAT registered. We also ask you to provide 3 years trading accounts for your business so that we can understand how your business operates and functions. We ask you to provide full accounts. That is that we need to see your profit and loss pages, balance sheet and any notes attached to the accounts to help us understand how your business functions. If you're a new business and have not actually been operating for 3 years, then you need to provide us what accounts you have available, or if it's your first year of trading, you need to provide us with a statement from your accountant showing the likely profit and a statement of your current assets and liabilities. If you haven't got full accounts, copies of your latest tax returns can also help in this matter, and you should discuss it with your accountant before submitting. We also require you to submit accounts for any linked businesses. A linked business is one that you actually trade with as part of your company. We are aware that a number of farm businesses operate separate accounts where they are producing food for various tax and legal reasons. Where this is the case, you need to provide us with both sets of accounts. Quotations. You need to provide 3 quotes for each of the items on which you are seeking grant funding. The quotes must be comparable, and each quote must list the name and address of the applicant and also the supplier. They must be valid and at least no more than 9 months old. For some items involving the processing of food, these may be available through catalogue listings. You can supply catalogue listings, but we need to see a copy of the actual page from which you're taking it from, and this must include the actual name of the company and also the date. Second-hand equipment. You can apply for funding for second-hand equipment. To actually apply for second-hand equipment, you will need to provide some evidence that firstly, it has not been previously funded. This should be obtained from the supplier, that the actual equipment is fit for purpose and meets current health and safety requirements. The equipment should also have at least 5 years useful life remaining. Market research. You've undertaken market research to actually decide this is a worthwhile project for yourselves. You need to tell us about this. You need to tell us what market research you've undertaken, what demand you believe there is for your product, and any support you have from other areas, from other businesses. You can also provide us with evidence of the need and demand for the project. That there is a need for the product you're actually producing and there is demand. This could be in the form of forward orders or letters of support from your customers. Top tips for applicants to remember. Productivity. The main aim of the scheme is to improve farm productivity and benefit the agri-food supply chain. So tell us how your project will help you do this. You know what idea you have here, but you need to sell us it. It's a competitive process, so you need to sell us your ideas. Show us what funding will mean to the success of your business. Do your research. Have you shown that there is a real need for the project? Think about how much money you need. Don't ask for more than you actually need. It's a competitive process, and so you need to think about value for money. And there is no guarantee of funding. Things to note. You should not start a project until you have received approval from the RPA. Any expenditure incurred before the start date may render the project ineligible for support. Claims can only be submitted after expenditure has taken place, and this is being evidenced in bank statements. So always think about your cash flow and that you're able to actually fund the project while you're awaiting grant funding. All projects must adhere to the EU marketing and publicity regulations. If you're successful with your application, you will be given further details about this and what you will have to provide. Remember, all projects are likely to be audited during the lifetime of the project. So you must keep your records for at least 5 years after the final date of claim payment. Finally, do not start work, incur any cost or place any order before your grant agreement has been signed. Thank you for watching the video. I hope it helps you with your application. The things we have covered are the timescales to submit a full application, the scope of information you need to submit a full application, practical guidance and pointers to help you complete the forms using the handbook and guidance, and what additional information to support your application. You can also follow us across social media, Twitter, @RuralPay, Facebook, Rural Payments Agency, all one word, YouTube, Rural Payments Agency, and our blog, ruralpayments.blog.gov.uk.